Welcome, everyone. I'm Tracy Fitzpatrick, and I'll be your moderator today. Thank you so much for joining us here at Netcom Learning, a market leader in promoting lifelong learning, training, and talent development solutions. We are very excited to host today's event, Data-Driven Security, Leveraging Analytics for Better Threat Detection. Presenting today's topic is Nick Lanes. Nick, a technical program manager in security with over 25 years of experience, is a global cybersecurity leader, award-winning instructor, and best-selling author of the CASP Plus CompTIA Advanced Security Practitioner Exam Guide. His expertise spans threat analysis, risk management, and secure architecture, with top certifications like CISSP, CISM, CEH, and Security Plus. Now, please bear in mind that this is an overview of a very robust topic. We offer a collection of technical and business courses that can be tailored to your specific requirements. If you are interested in a further discussion, you can make an appointment with our learning consultants through our website at netcomlearning.com. Today's session is also being recorded, so you'll get free access to the recording in the next 24 hours via email. Netcom Learning helps customers build innovative learning organizations by achieving a smarter workforce, adapting to change, and driving growth. We do this with a broad catalog of offerings, developing customized learning plans, and our global delivery capabilities. Since 1998, we have been empowering organizations with our managed learning services to help them reach optimal performance results and address challenges. We do have 9 practice areas in which we specialize. They encompass people, process, and technology training. And today's presentation is from the Security Practice Area. Netcom Learning offers a comprehensive training portfolio of courses for the topic being covered today. Our upcoming classes include various trainings on the given courses. You can also access a variety of marketing assets, such as the free training and blogs, by clicking on the available event handout. These offerings can be found with a simple search on our website at netcomlearning.com. Today's session is crafted to empower IT and security professionals with essential expertise and forward-thinking strategies to tackle the ever-evolving cybersecurity landscape. As critical players in this field, you'll explore how data-driven security and analytics-driven threat detection can enhance your organization's defense while acquiring key insights to advance your career in cybersecurity. Now, I would like to give you a quick overview of the logistics before we get started. To begin with, you do have the option to view in full screen by clicking on the full screen button on the right side of the GoToWebinar viewer. Simply hit the escape key to exit the full screen. Everyone has been muted except for our presenters. Feel free to submit any questions you have for the presenters here in the questions pane, and we will address them at the end of the session. And to get the best out of today's events, we've included the slides, courses we talk about, and marketing assets in the handouts section of your GoToWebinar viewer. You may refer to them at any time to get a better understanding of today's topic. And we do realize that some of you may have to leave early and want to let you know that as you do leave the session today, you will be presented with a short survey. We would like to request for you to take a quick moment to participate in that survey. Your feedback really helps us understand your learning experience and improve our future sessions for you. The survey answers are measured on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 representing outstanding and 1 representing poor. And now I'd like to pass this over to our trainer to present today's topic. Hey, Nick, thank you so much for joining us today.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone that is joining us for this webinar. My name is Nicholas Lane. You can just call me Nick, and we are joined today to discuss data-driven security, leveraging analytics for better threat detection. Brief background on myself. I've been a security instructor for 20 years now. I am a CISSP, as well as a CEH, Security Plus, CISM, and a whole host of other certifications. I'm also a best-selling cybersecurity author with McGraw-Hill, and I also have many years of experience in the field of IT security, whether that's with security information analyst or background and penetration testing, project manager, program management. I've been in many different areas of cybersecurity, and I'm really looking forward to discussing data-driven security with you. Take a look at these topics. We're going to first go over just an introduction to data-driven security and its benefits. We'll take a look at some key analytical tools and technologies. We'll take a look at a process or steps to build an effective threat intelligence pipeline. We'll talk about proactive monitoring and threat hunting techniques. And finally, we'll take a look at strategies for integrating analytics into a security framework. Now, the first area I want to touch on here is data-driven security and its benefits. Just a brief introduction here. So this topic, we'll take a look at pinpointing high-risk vulnerabilities, because we should always focus with the highest risk first. We'll take a look at also predictive threat mitigation, and the key word there is predictive. And we'll take a look at adaptive security postures in this topic. And finally, we'll round it off with optimizing resource allocation. So that first topic about pinpointing high-risk vulnerabilities. Okay, every organization, no matter how much budget they have in cybersecurity, no matter how many team members they have in their cybersecurity department, they're going to have not only a lot of vulnerabilities, they're going to have a ton of high-risk vulnerabilities. There's going to be a lot of medium-risk vulnerabilities, low risk, but there's going to be probably more high-risk vulnerabilities than any other, because that's usually what our tools are trained to find is the greatest risk. So if we're talking about data-driven analytics as it relates to cybersecurity, we have to focus on prioritization of critical threats. Even though you might have 10,000 of those and 10,000 medium ones and 10,000 low ones and a whole bunch of others, you don't even know what the risk is, like what the risk level is. We have to focus on critical. That means that there is very likely a known exploit out there that an adversary can use to take advantage of an organization's vulnerability. It's probably been done many times before, and therefore your cybersecurity tool knows a lot about it. So when you get an alert for whether it's a high risk or what they might call a critical threat, we have to prioritize that. The challenge is, how do you prioritize it when there's so many of them? There might be hundreds, there might be thousands in some cases. It helps to have tools that have the artificial intelligence to know which types of threats are more significant than others, and that is why we can prioritize it. So we need to have data-driven security that helps prioritize these critical threats, okay? Because, you know, working for a multi-billion-dollar organization, I can tell you that we are overwhelmed with so many vulnerabilities. And this is true of many organizations I've been a part of. There's so many vulnerabilities, there's so many risks that it can be, you would need multiple people full-time just to weed through all of it. But by having data-driven insights, we can reduce the bandwidth that's wasted on low-risk alerts. That's a critical part of this. We also want to do what the acronym is called RCA, or root cause analysis, okay? Because when we are trying to find our high-risk vulnerabilities, we want to understand, like, really, how does it work? Okay, what type of adversary is likely to take advantage of that vulnerability? What type of tools would they use? What types of systems are they likely to exploit? And what type of paper trail is that going to leave behind? What type of logs, you know, or log entry should we look for? In other words, we want to know the 360-degree approach to not only identifying the vulnerability, but also remediating it. And that whole process, we're going to call root cause analysis. We're going to look at advanced analytics from whatever IT tool we have or cybersecurity tool that will enable root cause analysis, or what's commonly called RCA. That will help us to not just remediate that vulnerability, but also prevent the reoccurrence of attacks by addressing the underlying issue. That's the main point of root cause analysis, is to solve it permanently. Okay, you don't want to get hit with that same attack again and again and again. We want to try to remediate it at the underlying level, whether it's at the patch level or the security training level or at the NFA level. We want to have root cause analysis. We have a good solution in place. Okay, so I'll give you an example for root cause analysis. Okay, a healthcare provider, they might use root cause analysis to identify and fix vulnerabilities in their patient data management system. Okay, because with a healthcare provider, it's all about HIPAA and it's all about the protection of healthcare data. Okay, so they're doing an RCA to try and identify vulnerabilities in their healthcare system to try and prevent future breaches. We also want to pinpoint high-risk vulnerabilities for reduction of human bias. Okay, human bias means that a person, they might have a bias that's going to make them focus in one area in particular and ignore other areas. Or that person might mistakenly think that one vulnerability is more significant than another, when it actually isn't. But what will help us to have a better approach is having data-driven insights from our tools, so that the tool is going to remove human bias and it's going to help us properly evaluate risks relative to one another. Because again, you're going to have thousands or potentially more vulnerabilities, and a human might say, all right, these 5 are the only ones that matter. A tool is not going to necessarily do that. A tool is going to help remove human bias so we can be more objective when we're assessing vulnerabilities. And we also want to pinpoint high-risk vulnerabilities with a focused resource allocation. Okay, so organizations, as much as we would love to have all the resources we need, all the people resources, all the tech resources, all the process resources, we would love to have all the resources that we need. We're not going to have all of them. We're going to have to prioritize. And by having data-driven insights to help us prioritize that, we can take our limited number of people, processes, and technology to focus on the most significant risks. So that's the first thing you're going to want to do, is try and truly, with data-driven insights, pinpoint the highest risk vulnerabilities. Now, another topic I mentioned before briefly was predictive threat mitigation. Okay, and there's 4 key areas here. Okay, whether it's anticipating cyber threats or identifying anomalous behaviors, we need to understand how threat mitigation works from a predictive perspective. Okay, speaking of anticipating cyber threats, okay, when we have predictive analytics, okay, in other words, we take the data that we've been given and we can make predictions based on that data. Okay, predictive analytics is going to use what's called data modeling. It's going to create various models of data. Okay, that model of data might be a model of high-risk vulnerabilities. Okay, our tools can build those data models. They can then perform statistical analysis. Okay, it's kind of the way, predicting the weather works. Okay, if all these conditions have happened 100 times in the past, it rained 55 of those times, right? In other words, we use these models that have been built over time to perform statistical analysis. And we're also going to utilize machine learning algorithms, which is a very popular buzzword in AI, to detect, predict, and prevent cyber threats before they cause harm. Now, I mentioned before, businesses don't have enough people, enough technology, and enough process to remediate everything. That's why we need to have newer technology, smarter AI-based technology that can perform security data-driven insights, so the technology can help to backfill our lack of resources. The technology can help to provide more resources, in a sense. Identifying anomalous behavior. Okay, when we say predictive threat mitigation, okay, we want to be able to flag unusual behavioral patterns. A big part of threat mitigation in general is knowing what normal looks like. If you know what normal looks like, then it's easier to spot something that is considered abnormal. But to know what normal looks like, you have to constantly evaluate your environment. You have to constantly scan, and tools need to be taught and also learn on their own what normal behavior looks like. Once we do that, it's easier to flag unusual behavioral patterns and, help detect malicious activity. Or a really bad threat, which is insider threats. It's more difficult to discover that because insiders are supposed to have access to your systems. They're supposed to have privileges. Therefore, it's not always easy to spot when they do something malicious. Prioritizing security patches. There's always way too many patches and not enough time and people to test and implement them in a quickly enough, because patches can break stuff. But we can prioritize security patches so we don't have to do all of them right away. We don't want to do what's called boiling the ocean, where we're just installing everything as quickly as we can, and we're not really thinking about it, and we're biting off more than we can chew. We want our tools, our data-driven security insight tools, to analyze our vulnerabilities for us. And these tools can have a sense of, oh wow, this vulnerability, I know something about this. This is a highly exploited vulnerability that's been reported by many businesses. So we really need to prioritize patching that. And it will also build predictive models to help prioritize patches and focus resources on high-risk areas. That's a very important part of data-driven security insights, is prioritizing patches. If we have to rush a patch, okay, we can test just that one, implement it into production environment as quickly as possible so that we know we've done the most important one first, and we don't have to worry about too much impact, because it's one patch that we deployed, not 100 of them. And of course, optimizing incident response. So an incident could be anything that's disruptive to a business's operation. It's not necessarily a security one. It could be a power outage, or it could be, some kind of customer incident or what have you. But we're talking from a cybersecurity perspective. We want to optimize our response to those incidents. So once again, predictive models are going to come into play that can help us to kind of guess the best way to respond. What is the best response requirements that we should live by? Okay, so that when an incident occurs, we're always following best practices because our smart tools told us what to do. This will enable us to better prepare for future incidents. And again, help us to allocate our limited resources for the fastest possible recovery. And it's so important that businesses be good at that, because I don't care what business you have, eventually it's going to be attacked. It probably has a ton of times already, and you're just not aware of it because you don't have optimal, security logging tools and detection tools that can flag malicious or anomalous behaviors. So it's so important to get good at that, so that when you do get attacked, you learn about it, sooner rather than 6 months later when your organization is doing a vulnerability assessment or a penetration test. Another important topic: adaptive security posture. When we say security posture, okay, we're talking about our overall security blueprint, if you will. Like, how good overall is our security? Like, from an incident response perspective, from a risk perspective, from an operational perspective, an infrastructure perspective, from a forensic perspective, if your company does that, overall, how good is our posture? Okay. And the thing is, we want to make sure that that posture automatically improves from our data-driven insights, because we've realized that the threats out there are changing. They're more likely to take advantage of certain things. We want our posture to continually adapt to the changing threat environment. So we talk about continuous monitoring and analysis. A big part of security is just monitoring. That's why businesses often have SOCs, a security operations center. so that there's a dedicated wing of people that are just looking at logs, looking at alert dashboards, looking at red indicators and flags. This looks kind of weird. What is this? We want adaptive tools so that our continuous monitoring of network and security activities will better identify potential threats. Now, when I say automatic or when I say adaptive, another word for that is dynamic. Okay, so we're using advanced monitoring and analysis, but we also want advanced adaptation to threats. Okay, the threat landscape out there is not a complete unknown. Okay, there are tons of databases out there, websites out there where there's information about threats. There's information about hacker groups. There's information about, people are making threats on social media. All of this gets collected into our security tools and gets shared with businesses so they can dynamically adapt to threats. And another thing a lot of businesses are doing, they actually hire people who focus on that. They call it threat intelligence. And they might be what's called threat hunters, where those individuals, they're not necessarily stopping attacks, but what they're doing is they're going out on the internet, they're networking with people, they're looking at threat intelligence feeds, and they're trying to learn the enemy. Because hackers are always spending time learning who their victims are. We need to do the opposite. We need to learn the adversary. And if our tools can help us with that learning, our tools can help us to dynamically adapt. Automated defense mechanisms, okay, utilizing automation. And there's a word there, orchestration. What is orchestration? And how is it different than automation? Orchestration, simply stated, is the automation of automation. So you might have numerous automation processes in place. There's numerous numbers of them, but do we have something to oversee and control all of that? That's orchestration. We're going to utilize orchestration tools to rapidly respond to and mitigate threats. We need that, and we need that because there are so many vulnerabilities that we have. There are so many threats out there. We need the help of these AI capable tools to do the work of many people. And finally, machine learning and AI integration. Okay, there are a number of products out there, a large percentage of them, okay, that incorporate some level of machine learning. So if you're using a tool like, I don't know, IBM QRadar or Splunk or some kind of tool like those tools have machine learning built in. They have AI integration built in, so they can tie into other tools, whether you're using a Cisco endpoint management tool or maybe a Palo Alto endpoint tool or whatever. Those tools can tie into whatever your SIM is, whether it's QRoC or Splunk or any number of ones out there. There's so many. But we want to be able to utilize those technologies so we can learn from past incidents and adapt our security strategies going forward. And the last topic of this module, if I remember correctly, optimized resource allocation. Okay, so cybersecurity teams, like I said, they're usually not big enough because most businesses, are more focused on ways to make money, whereas, cybersecurity is sometimes seen as a cost. In other words, it's costing you money, not so much making you money, right? So the budgets for cyber, the resources for cyber are often undermanned and under budgeted until you have a breach, and then all of a sudden you start having a lot more. So we need our tools to help us as much as possible to leverage our limited resources to focus on the most important things. We want cost efficiency. We want cost efficiency. We need to know the most significant risks. We need to know what are the greatest threats out there. Our tools can help us with that. We need enhanced focus, okay? So that if you have 3 or 4 people working in a SOC and they're getting hundreds of thousands of events every day, only a certain number of high, or medium. They can focus on the most important areas. Tools that not only learn about your business, but also have the intelligence from many businesses out there, updating their feed so that they're more intelligent tools to help us to focus on the most important stuff. And as a result, it makes us more effective. Quite frankly, that's ultimately what we want to do. Now, with the help of these tools, okay, we know, okay, we're going to be smarter going forward. We're going to be more strategic going forward. In other words, maybe we can create new roles in our business that leverage these AI tools. Maybe some other roles aren't needed anymore because they're more of an old school kind of role. But having newer and smarter tools can help as far as producing your org chart. What types of leaders do you need? What types of roles do you need? Okay, what types of skill sets are you looking for? What kinds of certifications and training do you want those people to get in order to best meet your strategic plan? Got to think long term. Got to think 5-year approach, 10-year approach. That's what strategic planning is. Having smarter tools will impact your strategy. Okay, so that was an introduction. That was the first module. Take a look at the second one here, an overview of key analytical tools and technologies. We have Google Analytics. We'll dive into that in just a second. We'll take a look at, in general, the term SIM, okay, which is Security Information and Event Management. XDR, X meaning extended. We'll take a look at what the XDR means, extended detection and response. And of course, the ever-growing list of machine learning algorithms. Okay, so probably the most important thing that an AI engine needs is data. And who has more of it than Google? People go to Google for everything. All the searches they're doing, all the results that are generated, all the information that gets shared, it all feeds into the data that Google is collecting and analyzing decade after decade, year after year. So naturally, Google is one of the big players in the AI field. Okay, they have a tool called Google Analytics. Okay, it's a free service that helps you understand how users are interacting with your website or whatever app that you have. And that tool is going to provide insights into those users, website traffic, user behavior, like how long are they spending on your site, how many links do they click on. Okay, maybe you want to use it for measuring traffic, like how many users per hour, per minute, where are they coming from, or maybe you want to understand how to better market. Okay, how do you optimize your marketing campaigns and how do you measure their success? You can use the insights that are generated from Google Analytics. Okay, and maybe the result of the marketing campaigns is now we can find new users, we can improve their user experience on our site, and then we'll analyze that data, and then we'll do additional marketing after that, and we'll find ways to improve the user experience after that. It's a never-ending repeating cycle. So you have Google Analytics, definitely a great free service that's available to you. Now, SIM, some people call it SIEM, I call it SIM. This is a general tool, like there's no program out there called SIM. Rather, you have various types of SIMs out there. Like, for example, Splunk is a well-known SIM tool out there. It stands for Security, Information, and Event Management. So there is so many logs that businesses have. They have logs from their routers, their switches. They have logs from their firewalls. They got logs from their servers. They got logs from proxy servers and load balancers, and the list goes on and on. There are tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of logs, depending upon the size of your org. And they might be in different formats. They're in different time zones. Is there a way we can sort of aggregate all of that into a central dashboard and have good, intelligent information about it? That's what a SIM does. It aggregates and analyzes activity from the various different sources across your IT organization. We get centralized monitoring from this, which is so important when you have logs everywhere. It does real-time analysis. So it's not just aggregating all your information, it's analyzing it. And if there are threats, it'll tell you about it. It'll prioritize it. And it's an increasing compliance thing too. You know, a lot of regulations out there, they want this type of aggregation and analysis because that's just, it's common now. It's the bare minimum you have to do this. And because we have all this information aggregating into a central point, it helps with incident management too. So SIMs are very, very important. We need to make sure we do a good job with having not only a good SIM tool, but also having the skills and expertise and the resources to leverage it. Because a lot of times businesses, they have a tool, but they don't have anyone to manage it. Now, XDR, extended detection and response. Think of that as like today's version of antivirus, because that's not a term you hear very often anymore, is antivirus. Antivirus is it's too simple. Okay, there's a lot more threats out there than just viruses and worms and so forth. What about ransomware? You know, like that I would actually say is the even bigger threat. We need a tool, okay, that can combine the threat detection and response capabilities of many areas. It can spot ransomware and help us to deal with it. It can spot malware. It can spot malicious behaviors on a system, malicious processes. Like it kind of covers many different areas. Okay, and I'll give you a good example. Maybe you've heard of the Microsoft Defender XDR, okay, or maybe you've heard of Trend Micro Vision One or CrowdStrike Falcon Insight or Palo Alto Cortex XDR, Sentinel-1 Singularity. There's a lot of XDR tools out there. It's an agent that you deploy on a machine, and it's going to advocate on that system's behalf for detection, and not only detection, but also response. And that response might be to send logs to a SIM. And there's that AI integration. The log gets analyzed by the XDR, but then it gets sent to a SIM whose AI also analyzes that. And you have now two heads instead of one doing data-driven insights. So it's critical to have a modern XDR tool today. Now, here's a term you hear all the time. Some people just call it ML, or they call it machine learning. Okay, so machine learning is, and I'm oversimplifying this when I say this, but machine learning allows a machine to learn in a similar way that a person does. See, traditional programs, they don't really learn. They're just programmed to do what they're programmed to do, like a calculator. Calculators, they have certain capabilities, and that's about it, right? It's not going to adapt and learn and grow and change. Modern programs, like a person, they're going to adapt to the environment. They're going to learn from the environment. They're going to look at data. They're going to look at the patterns of the data and make changes based on that data. Okay, so machine learning algorithms, there's a lot of them out there. Okay, there's linear regression, that's a common one, or logistic regression. There's also the decision tree machine learning algorithm. There's also random forest. There's a bunch out there, but they're used for predictive analytics and anomaly detection. And this is very common now. Most of the modern tools today will have some element of machine learning. So for predictive analytics, it'll help forecast potential threats. For anomaly detection, it'll help identify unusual patterns and behaviors. Now, from an automation perspective, okay, we want quick and accurate threat detection. And those XDR tools, for example, will leverage one of these machine learning algorithms to quickly and accurately detect threats and use that information to learn and adapt to other threats. I mentioned this briefly before about what's called a threat intelligence pipeline. Sometimes people just call it TI or just threat intelligence. When we talk about a pipeline, okay, we're talking about the whole life cycle from the generation of the data to the transmission of the data to the storage of the data to the analysis of the data and then the reaction to the analysis, right? The whole pipeline. Even, where does the data come from? It comes from a threat intelligence feed on the internet or from some type of threat intelligence tool. All right, that whole thing, we're going to collectively call this a pipeline. We're going to set a direction on that. We're going to define, okay, what are we looking for? What questions do we have? We need to have that drive the direction of our TI. We got to map out data collection. There's so much data out there. We got to make sure we collect it from the best places. So there are threat intelligence feeds out there that we can leverage. We need to analyze and contextualize that data. Maybe you heard of MITRE, the MITRE attack framework. Okay, that framework gives us a model for how we can identify and understand any kind of threat and what are common remediations or mitigations of those threats. MITRE is very, very common. It's a very good one. Actionable insights. Ultimately, what matters is what do we do? In the end, what are we going to do about this? Okay, maybe you're an energy company and maybe you want to translate threat intelligence into some kind of an actionable step, whether that's patching vulnerabilities or updating security policies. But our threat intelligence pipeline tool or capability of a tool will give us that recommendation. Now, there's that word or words, threat hunting. I mentioned it briefly before. Implementing proactive monitoring and threat hunting techniques. When we say proactive monitoring, okay, you're going to have tools like a security camera. They're just always on. They're always looking. They're always recording. And those recordings are always being sent somewhere. Your SIMs, let's just use the very popular Splunk, for example, or an XDR tool like Palo Alto Cortex XDR, right? Those tools are, XDR will run on workstations and servers. SIMs are typically a server thing. They're just going to run in the background all the time. They're always monitoring. And the moment something comes in that looks kind of weird, they're going to generate an alert. And if you do it right, that alert will be generated not just by the XDR endpoint tool itself, but it'll get sent to the SIM. And then the SIM information will be sent to some person in the security operations center, or maybe your incident response team. And now an incident has been properly logged. Now we can properly respond to it. Threat hunting. It's the old adage from the art of war, where I think it's along the lines of, if you know your enemy and you know yourself, you need not fear the outcome of 100 battles, if I'm saying that correctly. The inherent advantage that hackers and malicious actors have over their victims is they get to learn the victims, but it's difficult for the victims to learn the hacker. That's the inherent disadvantage. How do we balance that out? We need, as a business, as an end user, we need to learn about the threat, learn about the hacker. We're going to hunt them. It's like the bounty hunter concept. We're going to have people, we're going to have tools that goes out there into the wild, that goes on the dark net or the dark web, if you will, goes into the Discord channels, goes to the hacker conferences, taps into threat intelligence feeds. Okay, they do all that stuff. They're like an undercover cop, if you will. They're going out into the dangerous part of the world, trying to find the real threats out there, the most dangerous threats, learning who their targets are, what their techniques are, so we can better build our defense. But it's not always that dramatic. Threat hunting can also be just you hunting for threats, looking for malicious activity on your system. Now, techniques, IOCs, or indicators of compromise, okay? This will be an alert or some kind of behavior that gets logged. that, looks like you might have been compromised. Like, why is it that a whole hour's worth of logs have been deleted last night at 11 p.m.? That sounds like a hacker. That's an indicator of compromise when they start burning the evidence. Okay. Another indicator of compromise might be, a locked out account at midnight, or, I don't know, 1 terabyte of data has been exfiltrated out of your system and sent over the internet. That's kind of weird too. These are all IOCs, and we want our tools, our SIM tools, our XDRs, to have the intelligence to spot IOCs, notify us, and also take, remediation steps to mitigate. Strategies for integration analytics into security framework. Now, the word security framework, that can mean many things. I mean, they might be talking about, you incorporating like ISO 27001 or let's see, I'm trying to think of some other ones here. ISO 27001, or maybe you want to utilize like a NIST security framework. There's different ways of looking at that, but it's going to be whatever your general security design is, if you will. Like, how are you building all of your controls? Like, what are you building it around? We're going to call that like our framework. We must utilize predictive analytics tools. Okay, we must use, actually, this is a new one that's kind of new. It's called zero trust architecture. Okay, with zero trust architecture, we want to make it where whether a user is local or remote, okay, whether they're using a business device or a personal device, okay, whether they are working during business hours or off hours, we're not going to trust them, and we're always going to demand that individual prove that they are an authorized individual performing authorized activities using authorized equipment against authorized resources. Like, we are making sure that trust is established at all levels. Okay, and we need a whole infrastructure and tools to implement zero trust architecture. Okay, it's really, think of it as like the new version of VPN. Okay, there's a lot of infrastructure behind it. It's more secure. It's a little bit disruptive too if it's not done right, but it's a great framework to incorporate. NIST, the NIST cybersecurity framework, is more generalized. It's more top to bottom. Risk, how should you manage risk? How should you manage infrastructure? How should you manage controls? Security training. Like, it's kind of broader overall security framework. That's a very important thing that we need to implement, but we also want our AI enhanced tools to gather data on it and about it to make recommendations on threats and remediations. And of course, real-time data analytics tools. So we touched on that earlier. Okay, regarding our tools, they're always monitoring, they're always generating alerts, they're always thinking, they're always trying to help. We need these tools to always be collecting data. With that said, thank you very much for joining today's webinar. I hope you found the session on data-driven security, leveraging analytics for better threat detection, informative and engaging. And with that, I will turn it over to our moderator.
Thank you, Nick. That was most informative. I know everyone is looking forward to the Q&A session, so go ahead and start putting your questions into the question panel. And while you do that, I'd like to give the presentation rights over to Nikita Singh, our Deputy Manager of Product Marketing, to introduce our promotions and webinar-related courses.
Thank you for extending the opportunity to speak with the audience today. I hope the session was informative and it added value to your learning experience. You can watch the event recording by clicking the Access Recording button here. Now, I would like to highlight Netcom learning capabilities and why we are the best when it comes to training and learning services. Recognized by Microsoft as the winners of the Partner of the Year awards 2 years in a row, 2023 and 2022, we excel in guiding organizations to achieve peak performance while addressing their challenges through comprehensive organizational learning solutions. Our dedication since 1998 has led us to service over 80% of Fortune 1000 companies and served 100 plus US military bases. We have trained over 1 million professionals and helped 36,000 plus organizations achieve their business goals. We have a huge portfolio of more than 3,300 certified trainers who are subject matter experts in their domains, and our dedication to providing customized learning methods is why we are awarded as the top 20 IT training companies by trainingindustry.com. At Netcom Learning, we are dedicated to empowering professionals like you with the knowledge and skills needed to excel in the ever evolving field of cybersecurity. We have curated a portfolio of cybersecurity courses that are designed to cater to a variety of professional needs, from foundational knowledge to advanced security practices. Each of these courses is designed to boost your credentials and prepare you for the challenges of securing modern IT infrastructures. Whether you are looking to start a new career in cybersecurity or aiming to advance your existing skills, Netcom Learning has a path for you. Alongside these courses, we also offer valuable marketing assets to enhance your learning experience. We encourage you to explore these courses and resources on our website. Please check out the handouts for detailed information on each course and links to access the training and blog. You can also take advantage from Learning Passport, which is Netcom Learning's solution to flexible team training. It is designed to be customized for the number of learners you train on top technology vendors like Microsoft, Cisco, CompTIA, Adobe, and more. The single package can be redeemed for over 4,000 plus official courses with a validity of 12 months. To introduce you to Netcom Plus Learner subscription, which is complimentary for all the attendees, and Netcom Plus provides you access to more than 400 e-learning courses across various technologies and vendors. I would recommend you all to visit Netcom Learning's website for more information on courses and certifications, free virtual events, our latest blogs and ebooks, and promotional offers. If you want to build a smarter workforce and drive business growth, I highly recommend you go through the book Building an Innovative Learning Organization by Russell Sarder, CEO of Netcom Learning. You can easily find this ebook on Amazon. And for the latest updates on IT and business training, follow us and subscribe to our social media handles. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day.
Thanks so much for guiding us through that information, Nitika. And now we're going to go ahead and jump right into our question and answer session. If you haven't yet, it's not too late to pop your questions into the question panel. And as we start our Q&A sessions, we're also going to launch a quick poll that we want to invite you to participate in. Doing so helps us to know how we can better serve you by telling us who might be interested in more information or in taking some additional training. In addition, we have a lot more informative webinars coming up, so please go to netcomlearning.com/webinars in order to register. What are the most important skills I need to possess to succeed with data-driven security?
Okay, I think that's an excellent question. Okay, to succeed in data-driven security and leveraging analytics for better threat detection, you're going to need a combination of many different skills. It's a broad topic. You're going to need to have good technical skills. You're going to need to have good analytical skills and even soft skills. So if we're talking technical skills, okay, you need to learn more about data analysis. Okay, you got to be proficient in analyzing large data sets to identify patterns, trends, and anomalies. So like learning more about, Python. That's a language, a programming language that comes up all the time now. Python is so important, okay, that you can argue that we should be teaching our children this at a young age so that when they're older, okay, they naturally speak Python like we naturally speak some other language. Those skills will be very helpful in the AI world that we're currently living in, and also, is emerging and growing around us. We're also learning about R, also learning about SQL. Okay, that'll help learn data analysis, to adapt the data analysis skills. Got to also learn more about machine learning. Okay, I mentioned several of those algorithms before. I would look into those. You need to have some experience with SIMs. Okay, whether it's like I said, Splunk, or even another tool called ArcSight. Get some basics under your belt on SIMs. Like you can get like a free trial with Splunk, and you could do it. You can access a cloud environment for it, or download like a local version to a VM. But playing around with a SIM is going to go a long way. And of course, threat intelligence. Okay, there are a lot of different vendors out there, okay, that have threat intelligence tools. I also mentioned MITRE earlier. The MITRE attack framework. There's a lot of good YouTube videos on that. I will take a look at that. That's just your technical skills. And then there's analytical skills, okay, like critical thinking. And critical thinking, you're going to be taking a look at complex problems. So that's where root cause analysis skills, or RCA, comes into play. Pattern recognition. When you're looking at a SIM tool, you're going to see a lot of different events. And sometimes patterns will emerge. And sometimes the tool is telling you about a pattern. You need to be able to identify that. Okay, risk assessment is another critical analytical skill. Okay, so in other words, maybe you're doing a vulnerability assessment, or maybe you're doing a penetration testing assessment, or maybe you're doing none of the above. Maybe you're sitting at a table, like a round table, and you're doing a like table topic risk assessment. You're looking at your security policies, and is there anything wrong here? Do we need to update these? That's also a type of risk assessment. But you're not going to be able to remediate vulnerabilities and threats nearly as well as you could if you do routine risk assessments. Now, most businesses will be forced into it because regulations require risk assessments for most businesses. And of course, soft skills is another important skill. Okay, a big part of what skilled people need to do is communicate what they've learned and what they've found to non-skilled individuals. In other words, when I say non-skilled, I'm saying someone who's not an expert, like, for example, a manager or leaders. They may not necessarily be experts in your area. You got to convert the abstract analytics into something that is actionable and understandable to a leader. Okay. There's also, let's see. Well, I mean, what about cloud security? Cloud computing is very normal now. Most organizations today are leveraging AWS, or Microsoft Azure, or the IBM cloud, the Google cloud. Or, there's so many cloud products out there, and there's cloud security concepts that you need to learn as well. What about ethical hacking? Ethical hacking, like Certified Ethical Hacker or Pentest Plus. Those are common ethical hacking certifications out there. But if you have some ethical hacking skills, you'll get better at assessing risk, and by extension, remediating risk. And another important skill is just learning about compliance. Like if you work for a healthcare provider, understand HIPAA. If you work for a government entity, or government entities are really big on what's called FISMA, Or let's say you're a part of the European Union, you got to learn more about GDPR. Or if your company processes credit cards, you got to learn more. You got to learn more about PCI. There's an endless number of regulations, or in the case of PCI, standards out there. If you learn regulations and standards and how they apply to your business, you'll have a better sense of the type of security you need to implement.
Which certification courses do you recommend we take to learn more about the webinar topics?
Okay, I spent a lot of time in this webinar talking about AI. Well, Netcom has a course. It's called AI Plus Network. When you take the AI Plus course, you're going to learn a little bit of everything as it relates to AI. And therefore, it'll give you a really good background on AI, because AI is the latest buzzword out there now. Okay, whether it's security, whether it's you want to be a server admin or a workstation or a desktop admin, or even programming to a certain extent. AI is baked into everything. And I think everybody should learn more about it, including people that are not even in IT. You see people at school using ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot. It's AI is now sewn into the fabric of our everyday lives. Taking a course in AI is a great idea. I also recommend Security Plus, because Security Plus covers a little bit of everything about security. And of course, AI will be a part of that. You can also take a look at the EC Council Certified SOC Analyst course, because a big part of data and insights and vulnerability discovery remediation is centered around the SOC analyst. Very good certification. Microsoft also has what's called the Microsoft Cybersecurity Architect. There's an endless number of recommended training that's available, and I urge you to take a look at the Netcom Learning website, do a search for AI or do a search for cybersecurity, take a look at the various offerings, and you'll certainly find something that's a good fit for you.
What are the biggest impacts AI is having on the cybersecurity field?
I'll start with the most significant change AI is bringing to cybersecurity is its ability to proactively detect and respond to emerging threats in real time by analyzing vast amounts of data and identifying patterns that would be difficult for a person to notice. And that allows for, faster threat identification and prevention. Essentially, AI enables more predictive and automated threat detection compared to the traditional rule-based systems that we've used for decades. And therefore, we're going to significantly enhance our ability to improve an organization's security posture. It's going to help us to improve advanced threat detection, machine learning, automated responses, threat intelligence, vulnerability assessments. Okay, it's going to have an impact in a number of ways. Now, it's not all positive. I mean, if AI makes you nervous, that's not a wrong emotion to feel with AI. I mean, there are, some concerns. I mean, what if the AI model isn't good? I mean, you're dependent on the data that is going into an AI model. What if the data is bad? AI models are only as good as the data they're trained on. If the data is not good, then the threat detection is not going to be good. It's the old saying, garbage in, garbage out. If garbage is coming into an intelligence tool, it just might spit out garbage. So that's certainly a concern. And here's an even bigger one, adversarial AI. It's not just the good guys that are using AI. What about the malicious actors? I'm sorry to say, but just the vast majority of them are also leveraging AI to attack you, to attack your business, to attack your website, to attack your application. They're using AI tools, and they're good at it because they already know what type of attacks they want to do, and they already know who they want to attack. So they got plenty of time to perfect it. And because the bad guys are using AI tools, we absolutely have to use AI tools to counter it. There's also the possibility of what they call explainability. Okay. How does the AI engine make its decisions? Okay. We need to learn the tool, kind of learn its logic so that we understand what it's telling us. And we can even program it to a certain extent to think a little bit differently and present data to us in a better format rather than whatever the default is. That'll help us to erase some of those explainability concerns. Those are great questions, and I hope you understood and gained benefit from the answers.
Once again, I want to remind you that as you leave this session today, you will be presented with a short survey. We would like to request for you to help us by taking a quick moment to participate in that survey. Your feedback really helps us understand your learning experience as we are constantly looking at how we can improve our future sessions. The survey answers are measured on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 representing outstanding and 1 representing poor. We want to thank all of you for joining us today, and if you do come up with any additional questions, feel free to send them to webinar@netcomlearning.com at any time. We hope that you found today's webinar informative, and we look forward to seeing you back here with us soon. Feel free to tell your friends and colleagues about our webinars and other courses. Have a great day, everyone.